The Tennessee Titans finally got a win, but my God, it was ugly. I'm going to break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's victory recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the second half of the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we are going to recap that ugly overtime victory for the Tennessee Titans. And while it was ugly, a lot of the Titans' top playmakers really stepped up in this game. I'm looking at you, Tony Pollard. But also the reality is this team still stinks. And we're going to talk about all of the major issues that showed up in this game as well. Before we dive into it all, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, well, you need to be one. This is the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world for a reason. But with that being said, again, it was a win, but my God, was it an ugly win at that. The Tennessee Titans and the New England Patriots, two trash cans banging off of each other, going down a flooded street. That's what it felt like for most of the time. But, I mean, the reality is the Titans did enough here, and they tried to get in their own way multiple times throughout this game, but they did enough to win the game, and that is what they have not been able to do throughout the beginning of the season, the first half of the season. So 20-17 in overtime, and, you know, I don't really know what else to say other than it was so incredibly ugly, and it just kind of blows your mind the way the Titans get in their own way over and over. But some of the things that really stood out to me here, the Titans ran the ball at will. I mean, 167 rushing yards on the day. This New England Patriots rushing defense has not been good. One of my big keys to victory for this game was running the football. The Patriots defense had been just absolutely leaking rushing yards for most of the last month or so. They're one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, and the Titans took advantage. I thought in the second half of this game, the Titans started to really hammer the run game, go heavy with multiple tight ends on the field. And look, the Titans scored points in the second half, 10 points in the second half, and then you add in overtime. That's 13 points after halftime for this football team. That's a major improvement for the Titans. And, you know, I know a lot of people out there are upset that the Titans won. They're worried about draft position and all of that. But again, I've continued to say throughout the end of last week, getting ready for this game, and I'll say it again here, the Titans needed this win. The reality is 2 wins on the season is not going to prevent you from having a good draft pick. The Carolina Panthers were the other team that had 1 win on the season. They got a win against the New Orleans Saints today. So I think Titans fans who are more worried about draft position right now, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but I am going to tell you that today isn't going to kill the Titans when it comes to getting a draft pick that they need and that they can use. I don't think that that's going to be a big problem, but really impressed by a couple of things that turned around for the Titans. You look at the offensive line play. Like I said, 167 yards on the ground. They really controlled the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball for most of this game. You look at the pass blocking. Mason Rudolph was under pressure here and there, but only 1 sack on the day of Mason Rudolph, and you got to give credit to Mason Rudolph for getting the ball out of his hands and not taking sacks in situations where I think with Will Levis under center, they probably would have been sacked. So, some big improvements there. I thought the defense started to get some pressure. I mean, you count half sacks. The Titans had 4 sacks on the day of Drake May. So the defense was able to get pass rush pressure at times in this game. You look at the turnovers with pressure. comes turnovers, the Titans are able to win the turnover battle in this game, which is something that doesn't happen very often. So with the offensive line playing well, the pass rush playing well, the Titans winning the turnover battle, I mean, these are all things that the Tennessee Titans have not been able to do throughout most of the year, and they were able to do it in this game. Now, the New England Patriots are an awful football team. I mean, that is a terrible, terrible football team. It really is. I do want to give credit, though. Drake May looks like he's going to be a pretty good player. Like, we got to give credit where credit is due. Drake May looks like he's a good player, you know, but the rest of the Patriots team is just absolutely awful. All right. So, like, I feel bad for the young rookie, but they can build around him. So, got to give credit to Drake May, but the Patriots are a garbage football team. They're going to be fighting for the number 1 pick with the Titans all year long. But overall, again, just impressed by some of the improvements from the Titans, some of the areas of struggle that they've had. And I do want to give credit to Mason Rudolph here. 20 for 33, 240 yards passing. He had the 2 touchdown passes. Did have the interception, though, which was a terrible throw by him. Chikakonkwo, should he catch it? Yes, he should have caught it. But, I mean, if you want to divvy out blame there, I'm putting way more blame on Mason Rudolph for a high pass that was way too hot anyway. That type of play where you're, you know, trying to get a pick on the line, on the goal line and throw it. You don't want to throw that high. So a couple of other high throws from Mason Rudolph, but I also want to give Mason Rudolph credit. When Corey Levin came in the second half, a lot of those snaps were really, really high over his head. And I mean, Mason Rudolph is like 6'4", 6'5". He's not short by any means. And Corey Levin was really struggling with the snaps. So Mason Rudolph made a few plays in this game where he's able to corral some high snaps and still make the play work. Obviously, some throws. Mason Rudolph is a good backup quarterback. That's all it comes down to. I've been trying to say all year long, and we see it in this game. Mason Rudolph is nowhere near good enough to be a starter in the NFL, but he's also a good backup, and he was able to lead the Titans to a victory. So offensive line play, good job. Winning the turnover battle, good job. Getting pass rush on Drake May, good job. The Titans deserve a lot of credit there. And there's a lot of individual performances in this game. Tony Pollard, Amani Hooker, Calvin Ridley, Arden Key. Like, there's a lot of individual players in this game that played fantastic, and they deserve their credit, and I'm going to give it to them right now as we do a little tighten up, tighten down. Before we get into it, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%ers. No, Robinhood Gold allows you to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on their IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. That's why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So again, this is how easy that it is. Here's some examples. Jamar Chase, 79.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, 1.5 touchdown passes. Travis Kelce, 59.5 receiving yards. Saquon Barkley, 79.5 rushing yards. Again, you pick 2 to 6 players and say whether they're going to do more or less. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. fans, let's continue today's recap of the Tennessee Titans victory over the New England Patriots. My God, it was an ugly one, but it's a win all the same. Do want to go away from some of the team-specific stuff that I talked about that we saw improvements for, or things that the Titans haven't done well so far this year, and look at the individual performances that deserve some credit in this game. Before I do, thanks again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But Tony Pollard, man, what an incredible signing by Ran Carthon. And look, I know that Derrick Henry's having a good year, and I expected Derrick Henry to have a good year with the Baltimore Ravens. But running back is far from the Tennessee Titans' problem. I mean, Tony Pollard was fantastic in this game. 28 carries, 128 yards. Should have had a touchdown that was wiped off the board by a Josh Wiley holding penalty. But, I mean, Tony Pollard deserves so much credit. He didn't practice all week, banged up with a foot injury, and then comes out there and carries the ball nearly 30 times for 128 yards. I mean, Tony Pollard has been the most impressive offensive player for the Titans all season long. He has just been fantastic through and through throughout the season. Also, Calvin Ridley. I mean, it is crazy to me how much crap Calvin Ridley has taken from Titans fans this year, when the reality is you watch the film, you look at the advanced data, Calvin Ridley is a godsend for this team. Where would they be without Calvin Ridley? Think about some of the plays that he's made throughout this season. I mean, Calvin Ridley, 5 catches, 73 yards, and none of them were bigger than the catch that he made in overtime on third down to keep the drive going. Mason Rudolph threw the ball behind him consistently today, underthrew him consistently today, and Calvin Ridley still was able to make enough plays to keep the Titans moving in some big circumstances. So 5 catches, 73 yards. Calvin Ridley did have 2 drops in the game. That's a fact. It absolutely happened. But when the Titans needed him most in overtime, a ball thrown behind him where he got absolutely smoked from the front and the back, he held on, kept the drive going. Just a critical play by Calvin Ridley to win this game for the Titans. He was big time in this game. And I also going to give credit to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who just continues to produce at all times. He's just the most reliable player the Titans have had on this team for many, many years in a row now. 5 catches, 50 yards, had the last touchdown for the Titans. I mean, and back to Tony Pollard, 3 catches for 26 yards. So over 150 total yards on the day and over 30 touches on the day. I mean, those are big-time performances from Calvin Ridley, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Tony Pollard. They deserve so much credit in this game for what they were able to do. And then finally, I'm going to give credit to the offensive line. Once again, the offensive line had a good performance, and they should have. The Patriots suck. The Patriots' defense is awful. The Titans' offensive line should have pushed them around, and that's exactly what they did in this game. Again, we look at the rushing yards. 167 rushing yards for the Titans, over 4 yards per carry. We look at the sacks. Mason Rudolph only sacked 1 time. Now, Mason Rudolph deserves his credit for getting rid of the ball in certain circumstances that could have turned into sacks. But the Tennessee Titans offensive line has allowed the least amount of sacks in the NFL since week 4. This offensive line is majorly improved, and that includes no Dylan Radins. So we had Daniel Brunskill at right guard. No Lloyd Cushenberry for a good portion of the end of that game with Corey Levin in. And then the right tackle position where Leroy Watson and John Ojukwu just take turns being terrible. So from center all the way to right tackle, the Titans had backups in for a lot of this game, and the offensive line was still able to run the ball down the Patriots' throat while also protecting Mason Rudolph enough for the Titans to have a functional pass offense. Again, the Titans' passing offense looked like a passing offense with a backup quarterback. It wasn't absolute garbage. There were good moments. The Titans moved the ball. The Titans should have had another touchdown if not for the Mason Rudolph high pass on the the Titans should have won this game by 10 points. And they missed I'll get into the mistakes here in just a moment. But overall, just some players really stepped up. And you look at the defensive side of the ball in this one. I mean, Amani Hooker. We got to give credit to Amani Hooker. 5 tackles on the day, 3 passes defended, including 2 interceptions on the day. Like, Amani Hooker is a ball Hawkeye. I continue to say it. He's a ball Hawkeye. And, before the season, there were people saying the Titans should cut Amani Hooker, all this nonsense. And it's just like, certain people you can't listen to out there. Everybody gets stuff wrong. I'm going to get stuff wrong. Other content creators for the Titans, even the best ones, are going to get stuff wrong. That's the nature of the beast. But there are certain things that people say that are just absurd. They're just absurd to even be wrong about. And Amani Hooker needing to be cut was one of those things. So Amani Hooker has come up clutch for the Titans. He's, again, a ball hawk out there. If you give him opportunities, he's going to be able to take the ball away from other teams and finish in the game with the interception down the field. Absolutely huge stuff from Amani Hooker. He deserves a ton of credit in this game. He isn't alone, though. He isn't alone. Arden Key, man. Arden Key boosting that trade value. I'm going to talk about this, I think, on tomorrow's show, but Diana Rossini of The Athletic reported this weekend that the Titans and the Arizona Cardinals have had conversations about Arden Key. And, I see why. Arden Key got a lot of pressure in this game. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack, forced a fumble in this game. Arden Key was awesome. Now, I will say, I'll be honest, there are a few plays out there. He missed Drake May on the touchdown at the end of regulation. One point on that final drive, he rushed too far inside and just quit on the play, just quit moving around. So I can't wait to trade Arden Key. But hey, the last 2 weeks, he's had 4 sacks. I think in the last 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, Arden Key deserves his credit for making plays for the Titans when they needed him to be made. Also, Jack Gibbons, 14 tackles on the day, 5 solo, had a half a sack, had 2 tackles for loss. Jack Gibbons is the defensive version of NWI. Okay? Jeffrey Simmons made some plays out there. You got to give him credit. I know that Roger McCreary had a bad face mask on the goal line, but he had a lot of physical plays. And Quandre Diggs goes out of the game, and Mike Brown comes in and has a huge pass breakup on the sideline and has 6 tackles. Like, Mike Brown isn't a starting level safety, but he's a solid player. And I don't think that a lot of Titans fans either know about him or give him the credit that he deserves. So some good performances out there from the Tennessee Titans. Got to give credit where credit is due on all of the Titan ups. But I'm going to look at the Titan downs now. And a lot of it is big picture stuff that, the Titans win, but man, some big time issues still remain with this football team. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, or The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Make sure that you go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to get registered. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the second half of the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can get on FanDuel to check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure that you never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Titans fans, let's cap off today's victory recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. The Tennessee Titans actually win a game, although it is an incredibly ugly one at that in overtime. And the Titans tried their best to give the game away. We did some tighten ups for some individual performances, but we got to have a glass of reality here. Like, it's hard for me to even talk positively about the game. I talked about some of the things they did well as a team at the beginning with the turnovers, the offensive line, the pass rush, those sorts of things. Mason Rudolph giving a good backup quarterback performance. This is what you expect from a good backup quarterback. We talked about some individual performances that were great. Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Arden Key, Amani Hooker, NWI as well. But again, this is it's a tough win to get super excited about, if we're all honest. If you watch that game from start to finish, it is hard to be overly excited about where this team is going. This is not a good football team. Like, there's no other way around it. Now, the Patriots are an awful football team as well, and both of them were doing their best to look terrible. But, you look at some of the stuff that continues to happen. Special teams. Like, why in the world is Cole Anderson still on this coaching staff? Like, we could talk about in-game management. We could talk about go-for-it decisions. We could talk about, inability to score in the second half, play calling stuff. But the number one thing that has me concerned about Brian Callahan is the fact that he is still employing Cole Anderson. Like, it has never been more obvious in my life that a special teams coordinator is not good enough to have the job. Like, the very first play of the game, the Titans get the ball on the kickoff, holding on the special teams. The Patriots in the first half get a big punt return. In the second half, when the Titans punt at the 2-minute, the punt is almost blocked, and then there's a big return to give the Patriots good field position. Like, how many things? There was a penalty on a punt as well. How many special teams penalties, guys being out of place? And we got to be honest here too. Ryan Stonehouse has been awful. He had a chance to pin the Patriots deep in their territory, kicks it in the end zone. Then he's punting line drives right at the returners and not giving his coverage unit time to get down the field. So as bad as Cole Anderson is as a special teams coordinator, that's how bad Ryan Stonehouse has been at punter this year, which is sad to see, but coming off that major injury, which is why I laugh when people pine to have Mike Vrabel back. Like, does no one remember the Titans led the league in false starts last year? Does no one remember the Titans couldn't score in the second half last year? Does no one remember that the Titans special teams was awful last year and they had 2 punts blocked in the same game and caused Ryan Stonehouse to be, quote unquote, broken? Like, all of that was on Mike Vrabel, and everybody just forgets for some reason. I don't understand it. So, whatever, that's a different topic for a different day. But Ryan Stonehouse and Cole Anderson together have been terrible on special teams. But Ryan Stonehouse doesn't have anything to do with getting penalties on kickoff return or Jaquan Jackson never getting any yards and never having good blocking. Like, that's all on Cole Anderson. So this team's special teams unit is still an absolute disaster, and that's not going to change until Cole Anderson is no longer the coach. But that's not the only stuff. I mean, Mason Rudolph throws an interception on the goal line. This team just cannot score within the 5-yard line. It's unbelievable. The penalties before halftime, that was the worst drive I've ever seen, considering the circumstances, to get the holding. And then you get a delay of game, and all of it to knock you out of a chance to having a field goal before halftime. Like, just perplexing stuff. And then You get a holding on the flea flicker that the Titans run that should have set up a touchdown. You get the holding on the Tony Pollard touchdown run. You get the bad snaps from Corey Levin. The Titans fumble a snap on 3rd and short with a chance to score a touchdown and not make it a field goal game in overtime. And then the Drake May fight. Can we just take a moment? I'm going to give credit to JT Runke. I think he works for A to Z Sports. But he tweeted earlier this week a video of Arden Key. Arden Key is in the locker room saying that the Patriots quarterbacks aren't mobile. He says whether it's Drake May or Jacoby Brissett, the Patriots quarterbacks aren't mobile, and that's going to make it easier for us. What are we teaching the players? What could Denard Wilson be saying to the defense for them to come out of the defensive meetings and say that Drake May isn't mobile? What is going on? It's the Twilight Zone. Drake May is a mobile quarterback. He's got good athleticism. He's a better runner than Will Levis. He almost ran for 100 yards. Drake May running the football and Drake May's mobility almost beat them. And I'll tell you what, if the Patriots didn't have a terrible head coach, they would have won this game. How do you not go for 2 at the end of the game when you score that touchdown? If you go for 2 and you get it, you win the game. To give the Titans the ball back in overtime and to take it to overtime when you're the worst team and you're on the road, Gerard Mayo is a moron. He's a terrible coach. Terrible. How do you not go for 2 after seeing what Drake May just did? So for Arden Key to come out of the meetings and say, we're not worried about the mobility of the Patriots quarterback, no matter who it is. How stupid is that? It makes you wonder. They are not being coached well. This is not a good coach team. Now, the difference is I think that Brian Callahan can get better and turn into a good coach. Okay? Brian Callahan can turn it around, in my opinion, but he's certainly not a good head coach right now. And the special teams is the worst coaching in the entire NFL. And Denard Wilson is a good coach, but how in the world, what is Denard Wilson looking at to tell his team and his defense that they don't need to worry about the Titans or about the Patriots' mobility at quarterback? How does that even happen? It is concerning, folks. Again, the Titans win. I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but my God, it is hard to get excited. And I'll tell you the honest truth. I see Titans are winning another football game this year. I do not see another win coming on the schedule. Maybe they could beat Jacksonville once, but I think Jacksonville is a much better team than the Titans, and I think Jacksonville sucks too. So, either way, the Tennessee Titans win. Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Arden Key, Amani Hooker, some good performances. Mason Rudolph is a capable backup quarterback. He can win these kind of games. I'll tell you what, whether the Titans win or lose, I am ready. I am ready for Will Levis to come back in to at least see the chaos. Let's at least see something more exciting. My God. But I'm pretty sure the Titans travel to take on the Chargers next week. It's the Chargers or the Vikings at home next week. Trying to remember off the top of my head here. Chargers, yeah. They travel across the country against a physical football team in the Chargers. They are going to lose by 20. It is going to be ugly. But with that being said, folks, that is going to do that for me today. Thumbs up on the video, tighten up on the chat, get subscribed, stay subscribed. With that being said, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.